1,000 years ago, the world was ravaged by a cruel demon lord. Humans lived in fear as they were killed even after surrendering. In a world ruled by despair, the last remaining hope was the 7 sages. Fire, water, wind, lightning, earth, light, and ice were the sages of the 7 attributes. With the sages' outstanding power, they were successful in overwhelming the demon lords, defeating them one after another. With the demon lords vanquished, the dark era came to an end, and peace arrived all over the world. At the present time, a young kid named Frey Hermes was anxious, as he did not know if he could become an excellent magician like his brothers. Frey's father reassured him that he would be fine because Frey was his son. Frey's father was certain that Frey would have the same attribute as him, and that he would become a great mage. Rald and Frey were then greeted by another family, who were also about to take the aptitude test. With the kid displaying a disrespectful attitude, his father immediately corrected it, ordering his son to bow down. When Frey shook hands with the boy, he was shocked at how tightly the boy held on. After the boy left, Frey was then called and was instructed to place his hand over the crystal to know his attribute. Frey prayed as he followed the instructions. However, the tester was shocked after Frey touched the crystal. When Rald asked for an explanation, he was shocked to learn that Frey only had the attribute of ice. Rald couldn't believe that his son only had one attribute, and believed that a mistake had happened in the test. Unable to accept the truth, Frey touched the crystal multiple times, but the results stayed the same. The reason why Rald was not happy with Frey only having the ice attribute was that it was known to be the weakest of all attributes. The ice attribute was nothing if compared with the others, gaining it a nickname, Disastrous Attribute. Later that night, Frey was still thinking about his attribute when he accidentally heard voices talking in the other room. Listening to the conversation, Frey was devastated when he heard from his father himself how he had been called a disgrace to the Hermes family. This shocking news led to Frey kneeling in front of the door, depressed and disappointed. The next day, Frey was then tossed out of the house as his father no longer saw him as his son. Rald was certain that with the amount of money he provided, Frey would become a decent adult all by himself. Frey tried to reason with his father. However, Rald had already made his decision. Rald placed the honor of his family over his own son, telling Frey that he was not needed in their family. In order for Frey to fully leave the premises, Rald showed no mercy and warned his own son that he would not think twice about using force. Seeing the flame in his father's hands, Frey became frightened and ran away. Frey could not believe that the person who was once kind to him had attempted to burn him. After running for some time, Frey hid in an alley, moping over the broken relationship between him and his father. Feeling hungry, Frey went out to look for food. Seeing the food, Frey felt happy and momentarily forgot that he had become homeless. Frey started to wonder where he would stay as he no longer had any home. After finding an inn to stay in, Frey had been staying there for a week and was no longer motivated. While buying his food for the day, Frey was immediately recognized by the people in the market because of his clothes. Walking down the street, Frey could only bear it after hearing the people all around mock him. With rumors spreading quickly, Frey thought that he had to be more cautious. Turning into an alley, Frey bumped into someone unexpected. Recognizing the boy from the aptitude test, Frey once again received an insult. Kneeling in front of the boy, Frey wondered why such misfortune was happening to him. Drowning in despair, Frey accidentally activated his attribute magic, almost hitting the boy. With his power being only ice, Frey changed his attitude, now focusing on becoming the strongest magi with just the ice attribute. A month after Frey was kicked out of the Hermes estate, Frey was now headed to the sacred ground of the Ice Sage, as he planned to become strong by training in the sacred ground. With Frey's body unable to bear the pain of the cold, he was shocked when he saw an avalanche nearby and ended up getting caught in it. When Frey finally woke up, he realized that he had fallen at the entrance of a cave. Venturing inside the cave, Frey saw something in the distance. When Frey moved closer, he was shocked to see a young woman encased in ice. Staring at the woman, Frey wondered if the woman was sleeping, praising her beauty for looking like a doll. Upon hearing another voice nearby, Frey was shocked and immediately turned, seeing another woman and feeling curious as to who she might be. Frey looked very confused, as he was not expecting to meet a young girl in such a harsh environment. The girl greeted Frey, telling him that it had been 100 years since someone last visited the place. Puzzled, Frey asked the girl why there was a person inside the ice. After asking Frey to calm down, the girl introduced herself as Arceria, the Ice Sage. Frey was slow in realizing that the person in front of him was a powerful mage. Frey also did not expect that the Ice Sage would look like a kid. Arceria defended herself, explaining to Frey that she was an adult. However, Frey could only see a child with Arceria's figure. Trying to take his mind off the woman encased in ice, Frey wondered how Arceria could still be alive after over 1,000 years. Judging from Frey's expression, Arceria guessed what was on Frey's mind. Arceria explained to Frey that the body in the ice was her real body, and that the figure in front of Frey was just a projection of her consciousness. With her power being too strong, Arceria had ended up fumbling with her experiment and no one could break her ice. As Frey touched the ice, Arceria immediately warned him that if he touched it, it would drain his magic, and he would end up freezing as well. Frightened, Frey immediately removed his hand and was shocked to see the ice trying to absorb his magic. After apologizing for not telling Frey about the dangers of the ice, Arceria expressed how only the fire of the Flame Sage could melt and break down the ice she had created. Finally accepting that the person in front of him was the strongest ice magician, Frey asked Arceria how strong she really was. Arceria could not compare her strength to the current time and just told Frey that she was strong enough to fight a demon god. Seeing an opportunity, Frey asked the Ice Sage how he could become stronger. Wishing to become stronger, Frey begged the Ice Sage to teach him. After calming down, Frey explained his story to Arceria, and she then felt apologetic after being portrayed as the sage with the weakest attribute. Feeling bad for Frey, Arceria agreed to make Frey her apprentice. Before anything else, Arceria told Frey that he must become a sage as well, a powerful sage strong enough to break the ice she had encased herself in. Frey asked Arceria if the ice could be melted. Arceria explained that the ice itself was irrelevant, but one must dispel the magic she had created. Arceria was certain that if Frey acquired the same powers as her, then Frey would be able to break the ice. Accepting Arceria's condition, Frey promised to do his best to try breaking the ice. In order to achieve their own goals, both Arceria and Frey accepted a mentor and apprentice relationship. 3 years had passed and Frey was still learning from Arceria. Trying to break the ice and failing, Frey apologized to Arceria. However, the Ice Sage was not disappointed in Frey at all. With Frey being able to touch the ice, Arceria was already impressed. Arceria encouraged Frey, believing that he would one day obtain the power to release her. Seeing how Frey was still depressed, Arceria thought of granting him one request if he managed to free her. Hearing about the reward, Frey's expression changed, looking more eager to break the ice. After confirming that Arceria was serious about the reward, Frey couldn't help but look away, feeling embarrassed. Frey told Arceria that he could only reveal his request once he freed her. When Frey explained that his request was embarrassing, Arceria was taken aback, thinking that Frey would ask for something perverted. After staring at Arceria's frozen body, Frey then asked his mentor about the experiment that led to her being trapped. With Frey being a curious cat, Arceria asked her apprentice if he had any idea why sages like her lived their lives in such strange places. Arceria explained that their sage powers were so immense that they affected everything around them. Listening to Arceria, Frey then understood that the sages had fought the demon lords for so long that after winning, they were now unable to fully control their powers. With the sages' powers being too strong, some had difficulty suppressing their magic, which led to a great impact on surrounding villages and towns. Since the sages could not stay in one place, they instead decided to live a life where they wouldn't hurt anyone. The point of Arceria's experiment was to suppress her power. However, because of her miscalculation, the ice she had created would keep absorbing magic. After being trapped for 1,000 years, Arceria felt lonely during those times, until Frey came inside the cave. Frey felt honored and vowed to make his teacher see the beauty of the outside world. With 5 years passing by, Frey was told by Arceria that all he needed to do was touch the ice and that there was no need to be tense. Touching the ice, Frey then used his technique called Ice Grace. All of Frey's training paid off as he successfully unsealed Arceria. After the ice broke, Frey immediately went and caught Arceria. With Arceria's body in a cryo state for so long, Frey asked his master if she could move. Fortunately for Arceria, she still could, but she needed to use more strength than usual. Touching Frey's face, Arceria found it strange how she could recognize Frey's face. Hugging Frey, Arceria enjoyed his warmth. After giving Arceria a blanket, Frey then went ahead and prepared a warm drink. Arceria asked Frey if he still remembered the promise they had made, where she would grant any request as long as her body could be released. Since Frey had never revealed his wish, Arceria was wondering if he would now tell her what it was. Arceria was also frightened and embarrassed, fearing that Frey might ask for something perverted. However, to Arceria's surprise, Frey asked his mentor for her hand. Arceria was in shock, as she did not expect Frey's request to be marriage. Arceria thoughtlessly accepted Frey's request, but when she realized what it truly was, she asked Frey to calm down and questioned why he wanted marriage. Frey, who was very happy that his master had accepted his request, looked confused as to why she would ask, and he responded that he loved her. Arceria was shocked, as she did not expect her pupil to fall in love with her. Frey explained that he had been in love with his master for over 5 years, ever since the day they first met. With Frey expressing his love and devotion, Arceria couldn't help but cover her face in embarrassment. Seeing how Arceria kept ordering him to stop, Frey thought that he was now bothering her. Arceria clarified that she was only surprised and mentioned that they had only known each other for 5 years. Listening to herself, Arceria wondered if 5 years was enough time for someone to develop feelings. Believing that she may have lost her sense of time after being frozen for thousands of years, Arceria was having a hard time making a decision. Unable to focus, Arceria told Frey that before he thought about marriage, he should try dating first. Thinking about it more logically, Frey realized that his master was right, believing that he was not yet suited for someone like her. In front of Arceria, Frey proclaimed that he would become the strongest magician in the world and hoped that Arceria would forget his earlier proposal. Frey then set out on his journey and arrived at the Magic Academy. Since it had been a while since Frey was in town, he almost got lost. With the rule that anyone over the age of 15 was allowed to take the aptitude test, Frey thought that taking the exam would bring him one step closer to becoming the world's greatest magician. While looking at the paper, Frey was still worried about his master's health, as it hadn't been long since she had regained her ability to move. Out of nowhere, Frey heard a familiar voice calling out his name. Turning his head, Frey was shocked to see his father. Remembering how his father had tossed him out, Frey calmed himself down and told his father that he had come back to take the exam. Furious, Rald asked Frey if he was joking. Although Rald had exiled Frey 5 years ago, there were still people who saw Frey as a member of the Hermes family, which Rald did not like. Seeing how his father still cared more about their family name than his own flesh and blood, Frey realized that his father had never changed at all. Wanting to prove himself, Frey told Rald to just observe, and he would understand. Moving past his father, Frey thought about how the time he had spent with Arceria had made him forget the anger he once had. Clenching his fist, Frey vowed to prove himself to everyone. The exam was divided into a written test and a practical test. For the practical test, all examinees had to fight. In the exam, everything was allowed except for killing another examinee. The exam only ends when the total number of participants is reduced to 30%. As the practical exam went ahead, Frey was busy taking out all of the participants he could see. After witnessing fire magic being cast, Frey met an old acquaintance of his. The boy then started insulting Frey, calling him a failure. Frey was then able to recognize the boy but could not remember his name. The boy became angry when Frey started talking back to him. The boy planned to teach Frey a lesson after being insulted by him. The boy threw lots of fireballs at Frey. However, none of them landed. All of a sudden, the boy stopped throwing his fireballs as he was shocked when he saw his hand completely frozen. Frey thought that he was about to go overboard and kill the boy. As the boy cried, the others could not believe how Frey, who had the weakest attribute, could freeze fire itself. Frey asked the boy why he looked surprised when all he did was freeze some fire. Seeing how the boy tried to use his magic, Frey advised him to stop, explaining how using his magic would only freeze his hand even more. Frustrated, the boy then ordered the others to attack. Unfazed, Frey stretched out his hand and blew away the spells with his ice magic. The spell shocked not just the boy, but everyone else. After freezing everyone, Frey asked the boy if that was all he had. After the exam, Frey hurriedly returned to his master, hoping that Arceria would not worry too much. Although Frey was pleased that he had passed the exam, he was still annoyed with his actions, freezing everything. Rald then confronted Frey once again, telling him that he had seen his performance. Praising Frey for his power, Rald then told his son how he expected nothing less from someone who carried the blood of the Hermes family. Frey asked his father what he was trying to say. With his arms open wide, Rald told Frey that he now allowed him to return to the Hermes family once more. Since it was their first reunion in over 5 years, Rald planned to give Frey a warm welcome. Frey remained silent while his father apologized for what he had done in the past, and told him how he was now worthy of their family name. Once Frey returned, Rald promised him that he would immediately arrange for his school enrollment and dormitory accommodations. However, Frey refused the offer. Although Frey had already declined the offer, Rald kept on insisting for Frey to return, promising him that he could attain the highest honor if he came back. Frey made it clear that he did not want honor, nor did he want to learn from someone who was weaker than him. After ending their conversation, Frey then walked away. Unable to control his anger anymore, Rald set his surroundings on fire. Sighing, Frey told his father that he would end their fight quickly. Rald initiated the fight by releasing his flame lion. Seeing Frey evading the attacks, Rald asked his son if he was struggling to dodge them. Frey admitted that he had once wanted to see his father's magic, but after witnessing a few of Rald's attacks, he thought it was enough. Putting an end to their fight, Frey retaliated and cast spikes made out of ice. Rald proved that he wouldn't be easily taken down as he tried to melt Frey's ice. However, Frey told his father that his actions were futile, reminding him about the exam and that his ice would not melt. Not wanting to draw more attention, Frey left his father stuck in ice. Frey no longer wished to attain any type of honor, but only wanted to see Arceria's smiling face. Returning home, Frey saw Arceria, who was breathing heavily. Arceria expressed how worried she was after Frey had suddenly disappeared without saying anything. Frey apologized and explained how he had planned to return immediately, even writing down a note so that Arceria wouldn't worry. However, that was not the case, as Frey's actions resulted differently in Arceria's era. Although Frey had gotten stronger, Arceria still couldn't help but worry. Frey thought about how oblivious he was. forgetting that his master had lived through an era of constant battles and had witnessed the end of those who couldn't survive. After Frey apologized, the two then had an emotional conversation. With their conversation turning back to marriage once again, Arceria told Frey that a sudden marriage was impossible. However, becoming lovers would be fine. Hearing those words come from Arceria's mouth, Frey felt warmth. After confirming that Frey was truly serious about his feelings, Arceria shared how she had been alone for 1,000 years, and had even thought that she would be alone forever. After meeting Frey, Arceria had become very happy and was grateful that Frey had come into her life. Before Arceria could finish talking, Frey suddenly hugged her. Apologizing for his actions, Frey told his master how he truly loved her. Seeing that they were now attracting more attention, Arceria became embarrassed and ordered Frey to let go. Arceria was not expecting that she would become lovers with Frey. Confused, Arceria wondered what would happen next now that she was Frey's lover. Frey suggested that they return home and eat, but Arceria wanted to grab a meal in town. Remembering Frey's life, Arceria realized that Frey didn't have good memories in town, which was why he chose to eat at home. Frey clarified that he didn't have much resentment against the town. Rather, he no longer had any money, as he had used it all when he traveled to the Ice Mountain. Arceria realized that for Frey's future, they would have to take care of the academy, look for a place to live, and figure out how to earn money. Frey reassured Arceria that once he got into the academy, he would take on jobs. As the two decided to look for something to eat first, they suddenly heard a cry for help. Witnessing an incident, Frey immediately took action, using his magic to block the culprit's path and subdue him in the process. Seeing the culprit fighting back against the magic, Frey suggested that he stop and explained that struggling was useless, as the magic could not be broken with strength alone. Before Frey could warn the culprit of the dangers of his ice magic, it was already too late, as the culprit touched the ice and ended up freezing his arm. Both Frey and Arceria scolded the culprit for stealing from a girl. However, the culprit was not frightened by them and even called Arceria a brat. Although Arceria was mad at the culprit's comment, Frey was even more furious as he told the culprit that his master was the cutest and strongest woman in the world. Deciding to stop arguing with the culprit, Frey left him in the alleyway. When Arceria asked what they planned to do about the culprit, Frey responded that they would just have to leave it up to the town guards. The victim then approached both Frey and Arceria, and the two returned her belongings. When Arceria asked the woman if she was hurt, the woman responded that she was fine. Arceria was glad that the woman was unharmed, but when she saw that the woman had a larger chest than her, she was shocked and even thought that having one was a crime. Trying to comfort his master, Frey told Arceria that size did not matter. The woman wanted to offer something to the two as a way of repaying her debt. Both Arceria and Frey told the woman that it wasn't necessary. Arceria's stomach suddenly growled, which the woman heard, prompting her to offer them a meal at her place. The offer was accepted by the two, and soon after they learned that the woman's name was Flora. Seeing her items being carried by her saviors, Flora felt bad as she kept receiving help from them. Seeing Arceria looking brighter than usual, Frey pointed out how happy she seemed. Arceria explained that she was just excited to have her first meal after 1,000 years. Flora was confused when she heard Arceria. The Ice Sage was about to explain her story when Frey suddenly covered her mouth. Frey whispered to Arceria that keeping a low profile was their best option for the time being, as they did not want rumors to spread around town. Arriving at Flora's place, Arceria saw the sign and immediately recognized the name Nemesia as the name of a flower. When Frey asked if she knew of the flower, Arceria responded that the flower carried the meaning of sincerity, the same as Flora. Seeing how Arceria was also knowledgeable about plants, Frey praised her and called her unbeatable. Receiving so much praise from Frey, Arceria felt embarrassed and advised him to stop praising her in public. As the three entered the store, they were greeted by Flora's mother. Seeing that they had guests, Flora's mother informed Frey and Arceria that they were not yet open. After explaining the situation to her mother, Flora's mother laughed and thanked the two for saving Flora. After Frey introduced himself, Flora's mother assumed that the woman beside him was his sister. However, Frey clarified that Arceria was both his master and his lover. Embarrassed, Arceria introduced herself while shouting at the same time. Returning the gesture, Flora's mother introduced herself as Seriana. Since the store was not yet open, Seriana suggested that the two wait for a bit and ordered Flora to accompany them. After being seated at a table, Frey broke the ice and initiated the conversation by asking Flora when she started helping out at the shop. Frey was very impressed when Flora responded that she had started helping out when she was 5 years old. Both Frey and Arceria then shared with Flora that they were mages and had come into town to take the entrance exam for the Magic Academy. Upon learning that Flora was the same age as Frey, Arceria asked Flora if she had also taken the exam. Flora responded that she had not taken the exam, as she did not have talent for magic. Hearing such news, Arceria commented on how different things were in the past, since most people could use magic. Frey then told Arceria that she could not compare her time to the current era since a lot had changed. When Flora asked the two if they were not going to laugh at her, Arceria was confused and asked what she meant. Flora explained how people who had magic looked down upon those who did not and made fun of them. Listening to Flora, Frey thought about how he was exactly like her in the past. Frey knew the feeling too well and believed that Flora had likely experienced hardships many times. Frey realized that having an ice attribute alone might already be blessing enough for him. Arceria then reassured Flora that they would never laugh at her, which Frey agreed with. Since the conversation was about talent, Frey expressed how he was not in the position to be the voice for others. Frey believed that a person's effort and kindness were truly what mattered, not their talent. Arceria found Frey's answer great and praised him. Seeing Flora tear up, both Frey and Arceria asked what was wrong. Flora responded by thanking the two. Ceriana then apologized for interrupting their heartfelt moment and told Flora to prepare herself, as they would be busy again. Both Arceria and Frey's eyes brightened after seeing so much delicious food on the table. Seeing her guests pleased with the food, Ceriana was glad. Ceriana comments on how the two are very close, like lovers with how they interact with each other. The comment surprised Arceria and caused her to choke on the food. Frey shared with Ceriana his and Arceria's story, which made Ceriana very grateful toward the two for still saving her daughter even though Frey was tired from the exam. Since Frey will be getting into the academy, Ceriana asks him where they will be staying. Frey responded that they still haven't decided on where to stay. After their conversation, Arceria took the chance to clean herself, which she was really happy with, as she had finally taken a bath after 1,000 years. Meanwhile, the boy that Frey fought in the exam was infuriated, unable to accept that he lost to Frey, whom he once deemed weaker than him. A mysterious person appeared in Agura's window, surprising the young boy. Since Frey and Arceria are still homeless in the city, Ceriana offered for the two to stay at their place, since they also run an inn on the second floor. After informing the two of the quality features of their inn, Ceriana was getting close to persuading Frey and Arceria. However, Frey and Arceria do not have any money to pay for the inn. Frey explains to Ceriana that they currently do not have any money, and that they would have to work after getting into the academy. Understanding the situation, Ceriana suggested that the two stay for free until they can get the money. After confirming that Ceriana was serious with her offer, both Frey and Arceria could not believe their luck, as they were able to meet such a generous person. Feeling uneasy about staying at the inn for free, Frey was leaning toward refusing the offer. In order to ease Frey's worry, Ceriana suggested that they help at her shop in exchange for a place to stay. Frey and Arceria accepted the offer and immediately went to work, cooking and preparing meals for the customers. Both mother and daughter were pleased with Frey and Arceria, as the two were demonstrating such efficiency in their work. Arceria explained how she adapted to cooking when she was still traveling. Seeing how the two are so in sync, Ceriana commented that the two would definitely make a good couple. Although Ceriana's comment made Arceria feel embarrassed, it also motivated her to work even harder. After finishing their shift, Frey and Arceria were then guided by Ceriana to their room, showing them their amenities. When Ceriana finally left, Arceria immediately jumped on the bed, resting her body. Frey suggested that Arceria take a shower first, as it would make her body more relaxed. Inside the bath, Arceria was thinking about her new relationship with Frey and how things may escalate faster than she had expected. However, when she got out of the bathroom, she was shocked to see Frey already asleep. Arceria thought that Frey was exhausted from the exam and should have expected that he would fall asleep right away. Moving closer, Arceria touched Frey's face, complimenting his cute look and kissing Frey's cheek afterward. Realizing what she had done, Arceria became embarrassed and immediately jumped into her bed and covered herself with her blanket. Unbeknownst to Arceria, Frey was still conscious and knew about the kiss. While Frey was having some difficulty sleeping, Agura, on the other hand, received a visit from a man with markings on his face. Receiving an unexpected visit from a stranger, Agura asks the man for his identity. However, the man did not give any serious answers, which annoyed Agura. The man then received a warning from Agura that he would get roasted if he entered their premises without permission. However, the man was not fazed, asking Agura if that was still true after his fight with Frey, where Agura could not melt the ice. Driven by anger, Agura showed his fire magic. However, the man was too fast for Agura and did not expect that the man was already behind him. The man then asks Agura if he wants more power. The man could sense that Agura wishes to kill someone and offers to help Agura in achieving that goal. As Agura becomes nervous, the man suddenly touches Agura, causing him to catch fire. The man reassures Agura that the pain would only be temporary and that he would soon obtain the power that he needed. The next day, Arceria is very excited as they are finally going to visit the city. As Arceria shared how her life was a bit difficult before with her constant moving and carrying luggage, Frey could only see the positive side of her master, ignoring her complaints in her past life. Frey then asks Arceria about the condition of her bracelet, to which Arceria commented that it was perfect, as it could stop the leakage of her magical power. Frey then praises Arceria for creating a tool that could help stop and control her own magic power. The tool that Arceria developed is a magical tool that continues to absorb magical power. With the bracelet on Arceria's wrist, both Frey and Arceria could continue living in town without freezing the whole place. Frey was more impressed with Arceria as he also obtained new clothes. However, Arceria sees it differently, believing that everything is all because of Frey. Arceria explains that because Frey accompanied her, she was able to make magical tools that she couldn't make before. Arceria also believes that Frey should receive half the credit. As the two started to express their feelings, they were suddenly interrupted by Ceriana, greeting the two with a good morning. Realizing that she had interrupted something special, Ceriana immediately apologized. Knowing that the two would be heading to the city, Ceriana asked them to purchase some groceries for her, which the two obliged. Before the two left, Ceriana warned them of a rumored pervert appearing in the city, specifically warning Arceria, as the bad guy is rumored to attack girls even in the daytime. Ceriana heard that the suspect is a skilled magician and hasn't been caught yet. Both Frey and Arceria were not fazed by the danger, as they are both confident in their abilities. Stepping out of the inn, Frey and Arceria then greeted Flora, who was sweeping outside of the store. Frey warned Flora of the pervert that Ceriana had mentioned, suggesting to Flora that she call for him if anything ever happens. Seeing Flora's reaction, it angered Arceria. On their way to the city, Frey pointed out to Arceria how she had been angry for a while and wondered what had happened. However, Arceria avoided Frey's questions and just told him that they needed to move more quickly. Frey was anxious, thinking if he had done something that could have upset Arceria. Seeing Frey's confused look, Arceria asked Frey if he understood why she was mad. When Frey responded that he still did not understand, Arceria sighed and believed that she was not good enough to not say anything to Frey. Arceria told Frey to not easily tell such lines to others, but when Frey asked for the reason, it infuriated Arceria, and she explained how the lines Frey told Flora could cause someone to misunderstand and end up developing feelings. After having the problem explained, Frey still wondered why Arceria got so angry. Frey then realized and asked Arceria if she was jealous. Embarrassed, Arceria defended herself, explaining that her reaction was not jealousy, but just a common reaction since they are lovers. Frey reassured Arceria that he only has eyes for Arceria and would be careful of his actions in the future. Meanwhile, a woman was being chased by a man in the city. After screaming from fear, the woman fell down and lost consciousness as the man had used his fire magic on her. The figure was revealed to be a boy, mocking the woman, ordering her to be weaker and to tremble with fear. Laughing hysterically, the boy was certain that with his power he could crush anyone. Meanwhile, both Frey and Arceria were now enjoying their date. Both Frey and Arceria finally arrived at the Estabe Kingdom and visited the royal capital, Ricaresta. Arceria felt a bit dizzy after seeing so many people in one place. Arceria had never heard of the Estabe Kingdom and wondered if it's a recently established country. Frey tells Arceria that the Estabe Kingdom is not recent, as it was established 700 years ago. Learning that the Estabe Kingdom has been around for a long time, Arceria wonders if the countries she knew still exist. Frey suggested that they stop by the general store and have a look at the maps to feed their curiosity. Arceria agrees to go to the shop after they visit the clothing shop. With a bright smile on her face, Arceria wonders what type of clothes are awaiting her. Preparing for their date, Frey suggests that they purchase a lot of items. Curious, Arceria asks Frey the location of the clothing shop. Frey responded that the clothing shop was just ahead of them. When Arceria learned that the information about the location of the shop came from Flora, she became pissed. Arriving at the clothing shop, Arceria was full of smiles, eager to select the dress she wanted to wear. Selecting a dress, Arceria mentions how she wishes to wear a dress that best suits her as it would make her cuter. After being asked by Arceria what dress would suit her, Frey picked out the best dress he could think of for Arceria, and told her that she can try the clothes in the fitting room. After trying out all of the clothes, Frey did not hesitate in purchasing them all right away. After buying all the clothes that she liked, Frey asks Arceria if that is all that she wanted. Arceria explains that buying too much would be a waste, as she may not have the time to wear the other clothes and would just be wasting money. Frey reassures Arceria that whatever she buys would not be a waste of money, promising her that he would take care of it. While looking for a place to eat, Frey was alarmed when he saw someone coming towards them. Although the two sensed something bad, they still helped the woman, who ended up falling down. After catching the injured woman, Frey asks if she was fine. The woman could not respond properly and just kept on saying, "That guy." Listening to the woman, Arceria wondered if the woman was referring to the pervert. After the woman mentioned that a guy suddenly attacked her, she lost consciousness. Looking at the woman's injuries, Frey thought that someone had done terrible things to her. Believing that the culprit may still be around, Frey picks the woman up and plans to get her somewhere safe. Arceria told Frey to wait, as she believes that treatment is the priority before anything else. Although there are no major injuries, Arceria can see that the woman still needs immediate care and suggests that they take her to the clinic first. The two agreed to have the woman checked first before hunting down the culprit. Meanwhile, the culprit, who was none other than Agura, was looking over the whole city, searching for his new prey. Agura was surprised when he heard a voice and was delighted when he saw that it was Frey. Agura asks what was going on, calling Frey a cheater. When Arceria asks if he knew the boy, Frey responded that he does, explaining to Arceria who Agura is. Frey sensed something strange about Agura and could tell that the quality of magic Agura possesses is now different. Confirming that Agura is the rumored degenerate, Frey points out how Agura is assaulting women in the city. Agura defends himself, explaining that they were only having fun and receiving their consent, changing the conversation to their last fight. Agura was certain that Frey used some kind of trick in the exam. Seeing Frey once again, Agura becomes infuriated and is now more eager to kill Frey. Frey was shocked when he witnessed Agura's new power, burning even his surroundings. Arceria recognizes Agura's new power after seeing the power's side effects. Arceria believes that Agura was turning into a demon. Arceria explains that Agura has been consumed by his very own power, which would lead to him depleting his life force, a price to pay for more power. With the demonization taking effect, one could no longer control oneself until their desires are fulfilled. Arceria believes that what Agura wanted was the desire to become king and make everyone around him do what he says. Arceria still finds it very strange, as she was certain that becoming a demon would be something that no one could achieve alone. Curious as to what may have triggered Agura's demonization, the only thing that Frey was certain of was to not provoke Agura much further. Arceria tells Frey that Agura's current power may possess more danger than they would expect. Agura then tells Frey that he will kill him. However, Frey remained unfazed, even telling Arceria to step back as he plans to take Agura by himself. Arceria asks Frey if he truly does not need her help, to which Frey responds that he does not. Accepting Frey's decision, Arceria tells him that she will just be observing the fight. When Arceria informed Frey that he would get a reward from her if he wins properly, this shocked Frey and he asked Arceria if she was serious. Seeing the two acting lovingly towards each other, it pissed Agura off, and he asked Frey if Arceria was his woman. After telling Agura that Arceria was his woman, Agura praises Frey for having good taste and compliments Arceria's beauty. Since the last woman he hurt was number 99, Agura wanted to make the 100th woman special and plans to even make her his personal servant. Listening to Agura frightened Arceria. Frey reassures Arceria that she would not become anyone's servant, as he had no plans of losing to someone like Agura. In an instant, Frey was able to cast a spell called Ice Prison Binding, trapping both Agura and himself inside. Frey created the barrier so that the casualties would be minimal, but Agura did not care, as he planned to fix it with money right after. Frey hated the way Agura thinks, which is common to most nobles. The two continued their banter and ended up with Agura getting more angry. Frey then tells Agura that the fight had already ended, which confuses Agura. Frey reminded Agura of their previous fight and how he got frozen just by touching the ice. When Agura saw his hand, he was surprised to see that it had already been frozen. However, Agura was no longer afraid of Frey's ice magic, breaking it easily with his new power. Frey was shocked to see black flames coming from Agura. While Agura boasts about the new power he obtained by going through the demonization, Arceria becomes worried for Agura's life. After asking Agura's name, Arceria asks him if he knew the price of obtaining such power. Agura looked confused and told Arceria that there's no price, as it was his power. When Arceria asks Agura who gave him the power, she was disappointed when Agura told her that he would only answer her if she becomes his servant. Since she can't talk sense into Agura, Arceria asked Frey to finish the fight. As the fight continued, Frey was shocked when he saw the explosiveness of Agura's power. Dodging and blocking the fire blasts, Frey was then being mocked by Agura for just defending with his ice magic. With Agura's power different from what it was before, Frey wonders if what Agura possesses is the true nature of the power that is hidden within humans. After throwing a barrage of fire blasts, Agura charged in as he planned to end the fight. To Agura's surprise, his flames were shot down, and he was once again subdued. Agura was confused, curious as to why he could not muster any power. When Agura asked Frey what he had done, Frey told Agura that he had shown the spell to him before. With the spell chain Icebind, the ice absorbs power and becomes even stronger. Agura could not believe that his newly obtained power had been sealed again. Frey educates Agura, telling him that his power would be useless if he couldn't control it. While explaining to Agura his mistakes, Frey had also informed Agura of the power of the sage, which surprised Agura. As Arceria approached the two, Frey revealed that he is a disciple of a sage. Looking at Frey's ice magic, Arceria assessed that the power of the demon was about to fade soon. Arceria then informs Agura that if he had continued using the power of the demon, his life would get consumed, which would lead to him losing. All of a sudden, Frey's bracelet suddenly snapped, which surprised Arceria as she realized that Frey also couldn't control his power. Confused, Agura asked the two what they meant by control. Arceria explains that the bracelet Frey was wearing absorbs his magic so that he wouldn't affect his surroundings. Arceria points out to Agura that Frey had been suppressing his power during the fight. Arceria lectures Agura, telling him that obtaining power by sacrificing oneself is not enough to defeat Frey. Although Arceria had explained everything, Agura still did not accept that he lost to someone like Frey. Even though he had lost to Frey once again, Agura still insisted that Frey cheated and refused to accept his defeat. Seeing how Agura acts, Arceria was surprised that the emotional swings from the transformation were still acting wild. Frey informs Arceria that Agura's attitude had always been like that. Arceria once again asked Agura as to who gave him the power. Frey was surprised as he did not expect Arceria to suddenly become serious. Unfortunately, Agura does not recall a thing and has forgotten the man who gave him the power. Agura's answer angered Arceria, and she then tried shaking and pinching him in order to make Agura reveal the answer. But Agura still insists that he does not remember, which made Arceria believe that Agura's memories were being erased. Realizing that she would not get an answer, Arceria stopped her interrogation and suggested that they now hand Agura over to the guards to pay for the crimes he committed. However, Agura only laughs and asks the two if they actually think a noble like him would get punished. Seeing Arceria's puzzled look, Agura guesses that Arceria does not know he is a noble. Agura tells Arceria that with his money he can have any crime interpreted however he wants. Arceria found it absurd and believes that Agura's crimes should land him a punishment regardless of whether he is a noble or not. Frey informs Arceria that in their current era, what Agura says is the truth. Arceria was infuriated, unable to comprehend the logic behind such a rule. Agura continues to mock the women he had hurt, believing that they should be grateful that a noble like him would even bother with a commoner like them. Agura's words triggered Arceria's anger, and she immediately grabbed him by the collar and was about to freeze Agura. Fortunately, Frey caught his master's arm right away and tried to reason with her to stop what she was doing. For the crimes that Agura had committed, Frey suggested to Arceria that they give Agura a proper punishment. Frey knelt and mentioned that Agura had hurt 99 women. Avoiding eye contact, Agura tells Frey that Arceria would have been his 100th. Since Agura had already attacked so many people, Frey guessed that Agura wouldn't be needing his private part anymore. Confused at first, Agura was shocked when Frey froze his crotch. In a panic, Agura kept telling Frey to wait. Frey gave Agura a chance, informing him that his crotch would still be intact if he could break the ice. However, it was already too late as Agura had passed out. Although Frey mentioned that what he did was merely a joke, Arceria could tell that Frey was really into it. Frey and Arceria then handed Agura to the authorities and met up with the injured woman that Agura attacked. After the incident, Arceria was greatly disappointed that their date was interrupted. To cheer Arceria up, Frey wanted to suggest that they go shopping again, but Arceria refused. Wondering about Agura's punishment, the two hoped that Agura would by then reflect on his actions. Remembering Agura's words, Frey wonders if Agura would truly receive a fair punishment. Still annoyed at how nobles are being let go easily, Arceria asks if the authorities are on the side of the nobles. Frey reassures Arceria that with so many victims from Agura's hands, he would certainly receive a punishment. Arceria remembers how Frey also got angry, and believed that Frey had some sense of justice within him. However, the reason Frey was angry at Agura was because he looked at Arceria with such lewd eyes. Changing the conversation, Arceria asks Frey if she can see the map that they had bought. After receiving the map, Arceria opened it and was shocked at what she saw. When Arceria asked Frey where they currently are, Frey thought that the terrains may have changed and pointed to a specific location on the map. Frey decides to keep his mouth shut and let his master remember something. Arceria finally remembered and told Frey that the location was the place where they fought the Flame Demon. Frey was shocked as he could not believe that the royal capital was once a historical battlefield. Frey was very impressed as Arceria remembered what the place looked like. Arceria accepts that the current era is truly different from her era, and was very impressed with how the people created a nation 1,000 years later on a once barren wasteland. Wiping her tears after getting sentimental, Arceria remembers that she still has to give Frey a reward and asks him what he wanted. Frey froze as he wondered if it's okay for him to say his wish. Summoning up his courage, Frey requested to be allowed to kiss Arceria. Arceria thoughtlessly agreed and later realized Frey's wish. Seeing Arceria's reaction, Frey felt embarrassed as he assumed that Arceria does not want to be kissed. Seeing other women gossip nearby, Arceria becomes embarrassed as she could not believe that Frey would ask for a kiss. Seeing Arceria all flustered, Frey wondered if Arceria disliked the thought of kissing him. Embarrassed, Arceria tries to explain the truth but finds it very hard. As Arceria told Frey that she feels embarrassed, Frey understood. as he thought that kissing him in public would surely embarrass anyone, and not just them. Observing both Frey and Arceria from afar, the man grunts as his plan didn't go as he had expected. Looking at a sphere, the man mentioned that the nourishment of fire magic was not enough and is just around 10%. Though disappointed, the man remained focused as he plans to make one more person become a demon, and already has one in mind. What surprised the man even more is Arceria's appearance in the current era. The man finds it detestable upon seeing Arceria with new companions and always grinning. Eager to get rid of Arceria, the man realized that his bloodlust had risen and immediately calmed himself down. Before vanishing, the man vows to make Arceria regret surviving. When the two finally returned at the inn, they were greeted by Ceriana, informing them that they arrived just in time for opening. Since the two were late, Ceriana asks if they happened to run into the assailant from the other day, which Frey confirmed and surprised Ceriana. Arceria reassured Ceriana that they were just fine, as Frey fought off the assailant. Impressed, Ceriana asks to share more of the details. Ceriana had to stop their conversation and suggested that they continue in the kitchen since it was now opening time. Frey, Arceria, and Ceriana continued their conversation in the kitchen while doing their jobs. After their shift, Arceria felt more exhausted than usual and immediately went to bed. Removing his clothes, Frey tells Arceria that there was still something he hasn't finished yet. Arceria's eyes widened as Frey mentioned the kiss. Arceria's face turns bright red as Frey gets much closer to her. As Frey leans in for a kiss, Arceria runs away and tells Frey that she forgot to brush her teeth. While brushing her teeth, Arceria keeps calling herself an idiot. Frey follows Arceria to the bathroom and also brushes his teeth. Frey expresses how trying to kiss someone was much harder than he thought, making him more nervous. Seeing Frey feel the same way as her, Arceria smiles, as she found it very funny that both of them were brushing their teeth before kissing. Sitting on the bed, Arceria thanked Frey for the day, and pointed out that even though their date did not feel like one, she still had fun. Arceria shared that she is not confident in kissing someone since she had never kissed anyone before. Before Arceria could react, Frey had already grabbed and kissed her. Hugging Arceria, Frey asks her opinion about their kiss. The two felt glad as they both shared that they're very happy. Frey suddenly pushes Arceria and asks if it was okay for them to kiss again. With the two sharing the same feeling, they were about to kiss when Flora suddenly entered the room. Realizing her mistake, Flora apologizes for not knocking. As Flora keeps apologizing, both she and Arceria were shocked when Flora suddenly cried. Before telling the two goodnight, Flora ran away in tears. Seeing how their actions affected others, Arceria told Frey that the kiss would have to wait for a while. Visiting the Magic Academy, both Frey and Arceria were looking for Frey's name to confirm if he had passed. Seeing Arceria on her toes and getting frustrated, Frey couldn't help but smile as he found his master very cute. Annoyed by Frey's smile, Arceria asks why he was staring at her. Arceria turns red after being told by Frey that she is very cute. When the other students heard Frey's name, they immediately stared at Frey and Arceria. Arceria asks Frey if he did something since they were now getting tons of attention. As the two decide to just look at the results and go home after, Arceria asks Frey if he is not at all bothered by the gazes around him. Frey doesn't really care about other people's gazes and is much more concerned with what Arceria thinks of him. Looking at the board, Arceria was curious about the rank posted after the names. Frey explains that it is the rank of a sage, a standard for a sage's strength in the modern era. Sage rank is a title granted to those recognized as belonging to the Kingdom of Estab. As a person from an old era, Frey shares with Arceria how the sage ranks work and what the ranks are. At the time of enrollment, a provisional rank is assigned. Ranks fluctuate during the enrollment. When Arceria finally finds Frey's name, she notices that only Frey's name is written a little higher up. As the two believe that Frey passed, they are very much puzzled as to why Frey's name is a little higher than others and also has no rank. Arceria remembered that she didn't hear the details about Frey's exam and asked how it was. Frey told Arceria that the exam was just the usual written and practical exams. Curious, Arceria asks Frey what the practical exam was. Frey explains the practical exam and shares that he froze the entire venue so that he would be able to return home early. Arceria was shocked as she now understands why Frey is attracting so much attention. Knowing how powerful Frey is, Arceria remembers Agura and how he keeps accusing Frey of cheating. As Arceria is advising Frey to pay attention to his surroundings, their conversation was interrupted by a woman in glasses who told Frey that the headmaster has a message for him regarding his test results. With the headmaster wishing to speak with Frey, the two follow the woman to the headmaster's location. The ranks of sages go from 5th class to 1st class, and above that are the special grade. Within the kingdom, there are a total of 5 special grade sages, and one of them is the headmaster, Alistair Rain. The headmaster was also known to be the closest to a sage of the water attribute. Knowing that they will meet someone powerful in the water attribute, Frey asks Arceria what kind of person the sage of water was. Arceria could only say that the Sage of Water is a strange guy, blending in with his surroundings right away like water. When Frey asks the sage's gender, Arceria blushes and asks Frey if he was jealous. When Arceria reassures Frey that the sages do not look at her romantically, Frey was shocked and was frustrated that the other sages do not find Arceria cute. After being guided to the headmaster's office, both Frey and Arceria met and greeted Alistair. After introducing himself to Alistair, Frey introduces Arceria as his master. Going straight to the point, Alistair informs Frey that he is currently under deliberation. Seeing Frey not surprised by the news, Alistair thought that Frey already had something on his mind. When Frey asks if it was about the exam, Alistair confirms that it is, and shared with Frey that many people could not believe that someone could overwhelm the entire place in an instant, something that has never existed before. Alistair has no doubts about Frey's talents, even wanting to promote him to a special grade. Alistair ended up getting an earful and was told that the decision on the grade is not up to them, but by the consensus of the kingdom. Since Frey is still being investigated, his grade is being held in reserve. With Frey's admission already approved, Alistair suggests that Frey proudly pass through the gates in a month. Following Alistair's suggestion, Frey thanks the headmaster for the news. To confirm the deliberation, Alistair informs Frey that a monitor will be dispatched from the kingdom. Frey becomes alarmed and confirms with Alistair that he will be monitored moving forward. Alistair did not want to divulge more information and suggested to Frey that he hear more of it from the kingdom. Before Frey and Arceria left, Alistair told the two that he was glad that he could meet them. Stepping out of the room, Frey and Arceria were then approached by a woman introducing herself as Jeta, the surveillance officer that was appointed to monitor Frey. After Jeta introduces herself to Frey, she informs him that he will be monitored until the deliberation is concluded, and that he be prepared. Frey was shocked, wondering why he had to prepare. Frey asks if monitoring also includes prying into his private life. Jeta firmly told Frey that they will monitor everything. By the order of the king, Frey would be detained immediately if his actions are found suspicious. Frey was starting to get nervous, as he did not expect that the monitoring would be so close that it would even include him taking toilet breaks and showers. Feeling depressed, Frey asks when the deliberation will be decided. Unfortunately for Frey, Jeta could not provide an answer for him, which made him believe that the deliberation would only end until the result came out. Arceria tries to speak up, but since Jeta has no information about Arceria, she asks Arceria about her relationship with Frey. When Arceria introduces herself as Frey's master, Jeta was surprised as she assumed that Arceria is Frey's little sister. Jeta's comment angered Arceria and clarified that she would be an older sister if she is truly Frey's sibling. However, Jeta finds it hard to believe since Arceria looks a lot like a child to her. Frey tries to calm Arceria down, telling her that she looks more childish if she gets angry. After calming down, Arceria was curious as to what would clear the suspicions on Frey. Jeta explained that there isn't a clear standard, and that she would observe Frey's daily life and report it back. Jeta was certain that the result of the deliberation would likely be decided based on her reports. Arceria was able to conclude that Frey would be cleared much quicker if the reports about him are positive. After thanking Jeta, Arceria tells Frey that all they need to do is just live their lives normally since they have not done anything wrong. Agreeing with Arceria, out of nowhere, Jeta suddenly requested to see Frey's room. When Cerianna learned that Frey would be monitored, she became angry and defended Frey of any accusations. Cerianna shares how Frey saved Flora. However, Jeta tells Cerianna that she will not take any personal opinion, since her job was to observe Frey's actions from a neutral standpoint. Sighing, Cerianna was left with no other choice and offered the room next door for Jeta to stay. Cerianna advises Jeta to follow the rules, and if in case that Jeta breaks one of them, she would immediately get kicked out. After reminding each other of requesting permission first before doing anything, the two went into their rooms. Frey already felt exhausted even though the monitoring had just started. Arceria tries to console Frey, but what disappoints Frey even more is that he couldn't cuddle with his master for some time. The next day, Frey did not expect that he would see Jeta after stepping out of his room. When he asked Jeta how long she'd been standing there, Frey was surprised when Jeta told him that it had already been an hour. Arceria also woke up and asked what the problem was. Seeing Arceria with bed hair, Frey then fixed her up properly. Admitting that it was late for her to ask, Jeta asked the two why they shared the same room. When Jeta asked Frey if there was more to the master and disciple relationship, Frey responded yes, making Arceria's face turn red. Arceria was shocked when Jeta mentioned that she would include the information in her report. Both Frey and Arceria agreed that such information was unnecessary, believing that being lovers was just normal. Jeta thought differently, and believed that a romantic relationship would raise more suspicions on Frey, tightening his surveillance. When Jeta mentioned the possibility that Arceria was being deceived, Arceria became angry and told Jeta not to mess with her. With just Arceria's expression, Jeta felt shivers all over her body. Approaching Jeta, Arceria ordered her to take back what she said. Still unable to believe that such pressure was coming from Arceria, Jeta tried to explain that she was just pointing out a possibility. Arceria finally regained her senses when Frey stepped in, asking her to stop. Arceria turned and apologized to Jeta, asking her to forget what she had said. However, Jeta refused the request and surprised the two by apologizing, explaining that she had said something rash without knowing them well. As Arceria and Jeta made amends, Frey was happy as he thought that more trouble would come. Frey arrived at the shop, greeting Flora and telling her that he came to help with the cleaning. Flora was puzzled, as she was certain that it was Frey's day off. With Jeta observing him all day, Frey explained to Flora that he was finding it very difficult if he was not doing something. While cleaning up, Frey wondered when his suspicions would get cleared up. The reason why Frey's magic was thought to be fake was because it was very unlikely to become powerful with a weak attribute. Frey thought of explaining his power to Jeta, but he was also certain that Jeta wouldn't be able to make sense of it. Seeing Frey's worried expression, Flora offered help at first but then became embarrassed and immediately retracted her offer. Frey reassured Flora that he was fine and that he would ask for her advice when he needed it. Jeta continued with her report while Arceria returned to her room and slept soundly. On the 5th day of Frey's monitoring, Jeta knocks on Frey's door and asks for Frey to accompany her to the academy so she can give her report. Frey was puzzled, wondering why he needed to go when Jeta just had to give her report. Jeta explains that she will not be able to write down her complete report if Frey is not within her field of vision. Jeta was able to persuade Frey when she mentioned that if the report gets delayed, then the monitoring will continue. After asking Jeta to wait for him to get ready, Frey closes his door and sighs in disappointment as he thought that he could spend more time with Arceria. Left with no other choice, Frey wakes Arceria up, telling her that it was time for them to go to the academy. After telling Arceria that he will accompany Jeta in giving the report, Frey asks Arceria if she will just wait in the room. Frey was surprised when Arceria suddenly hugged him and told him that she wants to be together. Turning red, Frey tells Arceria that it was not yet the time for them to be intimate. Looking at Arceria's sad expression, Frey hugs her. Jeta wondered why Frey took so long to get ready and entered the room to find out. Seeing both Frey and Arceria hugging, Jeta told Frey not to keep people waiting. Jeta informs Frey that she will step outside again and hopes that Frey will be done preparing himself within 5 minutes. Finally regaining her senses, Arceria felt embarrassed and asked Frey why he did not wake her up early. Waiting outside, Jeta wonders if Arceria is truly a dangerous sage, and if her surveillance is too lenient. Seeing Flora nearby, Jeta approached her and greeted her good morning. Wanting to know Flora's opinion, Jeta asks her what she thought about Frey and Arceria. Flustered, Flora asks Jeta what she meant. Knowing that Flora is not a magician, Jeta asks her if either Frey or Arceria had said mean things to her or even looked down on her. Flora responds that both Frey and Arceria are kind people and has never received any form of harassment from them. Seeing how Flora becomes serious, Jeta realized that she had asked a rude question. Flora thought that Jeta may possibly dislike sages and asked her if that is the case. Before Jeta could respond, Frey and Arceria finally appeared and apologized to Jeta for making her wait. Jeta then excuses herself, telling Flora that the three of them will be heading out to the academy. Seeing Flora wholeheartedly trusted Frey and Arceria, Jeta thought that Frey and Arceria may be different from other sages. Hearing an opinion from someone who is not a magician about Frey and Arceria, Jeta starts to question what she should believe. Arriving at the academy, Jeta asks for the two to wait outside since unauthorized personnel are not allowed inside. Entering the room, Jeta meets up with a man with glasses along with two mysterious people in robes. When Jeta was asked to give her report, she asked the man where the headmaster was. Although the report must only be given when the headmaster is present, Jeta was left with no other choice and shared her report. Upon hearing Jeta's report, the man gets frustrated, asking Jeta if she learned anything about Frey's magic. Jeta responded that she was only ordered to observe Frey and did not receive instructions to learn about his magic. Jeta's response infuriated the man, reminding Jeta that Frey is a suspect and that they had to confirm the truth of his magic. Seeing how the man was very eager to learn about Frey's magic, Jeta suggested that he ask Frey about it himself, or verify Frey's magic with the teachers and headmaster present. Not wanting to hear more of Jeta's report, the man asks her to leave. Before Jeta leaves, the man asks her if she had been wearing her necklace properly. Removing her necklace, Jeta was informed by the man that the necklace will help her in case of emergencies. After stepping out of the room, Jeta was asked by Arceria if she really included in her report about the relationship she has with Frey. When Jeta responded that she did include it, Arceria covered her face from embarrassment. Arceria was worried that rumors about her and Frey would spread. But Frey was not worried and even thought that the rumor would be more beneficial to them, as it would keep others away from their relationship. After asking if their conversation is over, Jeta grabs Frey's hand and tells him to follow quickly. Seeing Frey holding another woman's hand, Arceria was surprised and asked the two why they were holding hands. Telling Arceria to be quiet inside the academy, Jeta then realized that she had been holding Frey's hand for some time and immediately let it go. Confused by her actions, Jeta apologized and told Frey that her actions didn't mean anything. Seeing Jeta convincing them that she did not hold Frey's hand on purpose, the two thought that Jeta is probably exhausted from the continuous surveillance, even suggesting that they just return home and rest. Arceria notices Frey looking at Jeta's body, telling him that he should just touch her right away. Seeing how he had upset Arceria, Frey explains that he could feel magic from Jeta's necklace and had his attention drawn to it. However, Frey's explanation was ignored as Arceria thought that Frey just wanted women who had larger chests. When Frey was about to sleep, he was surprised when Jeta came to his room and was crawling on top of him. Confused, Frey noticed Jeta's necklace glowing, making him more curious. 4 hours before the incident, Frey was with Arceria, asking her opinion about Jeta's necklace. Arceria thought that the necklace is not a magical tool that protects its user, but Frey was still concerned since magic is flowing inside the necklace. Arceria mentioned that the magic in the necklace has some kind of effect, and the destination of the flow is the brain. Arceria explained further that the magic formula engraved in the necklace brings about a change in consciousness, brainwashing its wearer. Though Frey could not believe that Jeta is being brainwashed, he was more impressed with Arceria being able to recognize the necklace's purpose. Arceria approached Jeta, complimenting the necklace and asking her where it came from. Jeta held the necklace and was not sure how she got it, and just told Arceria that she may have received it from someone. Both Arceria and Frey were able to confirm their theory when Jeta had trouble remembering it. Frey thought that it would be better to remove the necklace. However, Arceria refused the idea of forcibly removing it since the type of magic tool Jeta is wearing is a dangerous item that is connected to her brain. Arceria was certain that Jeta would only be free of the brainwashing if she took off the necklace herself. Arceria was afraid that if someone tried to take off the necklace, it would cause more trouble for Jeta. At the present time, with Jeta very close, Frey noticed the change in Jeta's eyes. Realizing that the brainwashing is taking effect, Frey told Jeta to stop. Worried that Arceria would see him and Jeta together, Frey turned and saw Arceria heavily asleep. Since waking Arceria up was not an option, Frey could only just listen and observe Jeta. Wanting to know more about Frey, Jeta offered her body in exchange for information. Frey did not like what Jeta said and refused whatever offer she had. When Jeta asked why he refused, Frey told her that he is not interested in other women aside from his master. When Jeta asked if her not being a sage is the reason why Frey is rejecting her, Jeta started to spiral down and told Frey that he is the same as the other sages. Though Jeta is being brainwashed, Frey could tell that Jeta is not fully under the brainwashing yet. Trying to reach Jeta's feelings, Frey encourages Jeta to not give up. With Jeta getting more confused, Frey believed that with one more push he could get Jeta back. After reminding Jeta how she had treated him and Arceria, Frey was able to persuade Jeta to remove the necklace herself. After being told by Frey that the necklace was no longer necessary for her, Jeta thanks Frey. Behind Frey, Arceria's ominous aura increased, asking the two what they were doing. Seeing Arceria finally awake, Frey tries to explain the situation. However, he was not given the chance, as Arceria ran away, calling him a cheater. Realizing what she had done, Jeta apologizes to Frey for creating a misunderstanding between him and Arceria. After telling Jeta that his master also knows of the necklace, Frey suddenly asks her the reason why she dislikes magicians. Handing Jeta a shirt, Frey asks her to put it on as he is still distracted by Jeta's half-naked body. Frey learned that Jeta is from a family of magicians. Since Jeta had no magical power, her father had abandoned her. Unable to bear such shame, Jeta decided to become a knight. Frey recognized the similarity he had with Jeta, recalling how he was the black sheep of the Hermes family, and was just thrown away when his father learned that he had the weakest attribute. Knowing how painful it will be if Jeta keeps the pain inside her, Frey suggests that she find something else she wants to do. For Frey, his life changed for the better after meeting his master. Frey shares how he first started with his hatred and was able to transform it into an energy and opportunity for him to be routed in the right direction. Jeta asks Frey if he believes that she can find the one thing that can make her change for the better. Frey reassures Jeta that she can, and even offers his help. After lightening up the mood, Jeta had decided to do her best in moving forward. Frey was pleased with Jeta's decision and informs her that he will be cheering her on. Seeing the change he made in Jeta, Frey was happy, but he still wonders who gave Jeta the necklace. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 14. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.